Oh, hello. This is Tina Wiles again. Welcome back to ActionACT, the 5-day challenge. Today is day 3, and we are going to learn all about the when of taking the ACT today. Again, if you haven't already, go ahead and print out the worksheet, and you're going to be looking at that and coming up with some goals for today. So a famous quote by Benjamin Franklin: "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." And the first step of that preparing is figuring out when you're going to be taking the ACT. So this is one of the most common questions I get asked. When should you take the test? So the ACT is actually given 7 times a year. And this is every year. They added the July test for 2018. So as far as I know, this will be sticking around, but it definitely is for 2018. So the 7 times a year ACT has the test is February, April, June, July, September, October, and December. Okay, why this is so important is because when you think about how you're going to take the test, you can figure out where in the school year in your outside activities. So whether they're clubs or if you're football player or a fall sport athlete, you probably don't want to take it during that time of year. You have a lot of flexibility when you know how often the test is given. So now let's take a look at what would work for you. So from 12 years of doing this, I find I really have 4 types of students. So most students take the ACT 2 or 3 times. My goal would be that you take it once and you're completely done. But just in case, a lot of students end up taking it 2 or 3 times. So the very prepared student actually prepares over the summer between sophomore and junior year with the goal of taking the September-October ACT of their junior year. So they're starting off junior year with knowing here's exactly where I'm at and here's where I want to get to. If they take it a second time, they'll usually take it either the December test or the February test, again, depending on their schedule. And then the last time they're taking it is in April or June. So a prepared junior would be taking the test midway through junior year. So starting with the December or February test, taking it again in April, and then in June if needed. So what I find with the average student, so this is what happens with the majority of students, is they'll actually take the ACT for the first time in April of their junior year. Then they end up taking the ACT, if they take it again, is in June. And the disadvantage to this path is that there is a chance that you'd be taking the ACT in September or October of your senior year. And then I do have students that will show up in the little late category where they're not taking it until after they're done with junior year, which would be the June test, and then they end up taking it senior year. So it all kind of depends. Some of the little late students might have taken the SAT first and they weren't happy with that. So whichever type of student you are, it's not good or bad. It's just realizing what type of student you are and planning accordingly. So with the assignment today, I want you to give some thought into the type of student that you are. If you have taken the test already, which one you've taken or taken more than one. And if you haven't, which one you're going to have being the first, and giving some thought into when your next test would be. So now that you know when you're going to be taking the test, the next question is, when should you start preparing for the test? So the process that I use is you pick the first test date that you are going to take. So say I am going to take the October ACT, and that's going to be the first test that I take. I would count 6 weeks before the October ACT. So that would put me the end of August, beginning of September, and that's when I would start preparing. Okay, so you pick the test date, you count 6 weeks before that test, and you start preparing. When it's not your first test, if you're not happy with your score, I would prepare the same way. I would still count 6 weeks before and do that. If you are working on certain subjects for second or third test, you might not need to do the whole 6 weeks before, but you'd follow a shortened version of this. I will talk tomorrow about materials to prep, and so I'll talk more about that then. Okay, so when to prepare? Like I said, 6 weeks beforehand, you're going to take a full practice test. And why that's so important is so you know, here's exactly what I'm starting at. And then after you take that full practice test, I want you to look through your calendar and set aside time each week to review the subject that you're doing your best in and your worst in. And that's what you want to start with. And I know it sounds crazy, but because the ACT is an average, like we learned about yesterday, the fastest way to move your score is to work on your extremes, the highest score and the lowest score. And by improving those two scores, you're going to pull the average the fastest. So on your calendar, 6 weeks before a full test, you set aside time each week. 2 weeks before the test date, I want you to take another full practice test so that you have enough time to review what you're getting wrong and why it's wrong. So that is really my secret formula to preparing for the test. So your assignment today is figuring out which tests you're going to take. And if you haven't registered, you can go ahead and register, and the link to the registration is on your worksheet. Then I want you to go take out a calendar, count back the 6 weeks, and fill in your calendar both for the full practice tests, which you'll need a dedicated 3.5 hours each. If you don't have accommodations, you need 3.5 hours. If you do have accommodations, you need longer than that. And then I would set aside 2 to 4 hours a week for dedicated ACT time. And if you're afraid that you're not going to follow through with that, I would definitely talk with a friend and see if you can get an accountability buddy to work through this with you. So go ahead and post any questions in the Facebook group. And I hope this answered some of your questions about when to take the test. And I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.